joining us on Better Biz again. You know, telling stories is such an important part of what businesses need to do these days. But certainly, I think the most emotional stories come from funeral homes, and there's a lot of lessons that we can learn by hearing those stories and understanding what's gone on behind them. So we've got today a very special guest, Diane from Elite Funerals. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
Diane, I'm really interested to hear a story that I know you've got about a guy called Tom who passed away not that long ago. And, you had quite an extraordinary experience with the family. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that came about and a little bit about that service?
Sure. I love Tom's family. Tom died very suddenly. He was killed in a car accident. And he has a sister here in Sydney who has one daughter who is married. And the girl rang, or the woman rang, and needed to have something very simple. She didn't want her mother to have to travel far for a funeral service, and didn't want to feel as though she had to have a celebrant, or they just wanted no flowers, but they wanted to be there. And she was really struggling with what her heart wanted to have and whether she could get it or not. So when they came in to see me, we sat down and we talked about Tom and how he had died, and Mum. And again, it was just about listening to their stories and feeling their concerns. And Tom ended up having a funeral service in a chapel. He had that most simple coffin that no funeral director should sell to anybody, but because we're not, in traditional terms, that coffin is just for unattended cremation services. But when I showed them the photo of it, she said, yeah, that's exactly what we want. That's exactly what we want. Terrific. So Tom had this coffin, no flowers. He had about 10 people at his funeral service, some of who were friends from school. And they all obviously knew how he died. And I just announced to them earlier on, once they were all in there, I said, I thanked them for coming to say goodbye to Tom, and I explained the coffin you're looking at is probably not one you've seen before, but it was exactly what Tom had requested. And they all nodded in appreciation, knowing what Tom was like. And I left them to their own devices in the chapel for about half an hour, and then came back in, and the sister of Tom wanted to see his body. And he had been in a car accident, as I said. And so I explained to everybody that she wanted to see his body. If they didn't want to do that, they could just take a little seat at the back of the chapel. And I said, I've seen Tom, and of course he's been in an accident, but he's recognisable. There's a little cut here, and I explained exactly what they were going to see. And everyone stayed. Everyone wanted to see him. We took the lid off the coffin, and there were tears and a little bit of laughter and touching and holding his hand, and just the friends. Then when we put the lid back on the coffin, the friends put his coffin up at the catafalque, and his sister closed the curtains, hit the button to close the curtains on his coffin. And the relief on their faces when we came outside of the chapel, and just the joy, and you could hear them talking to each other about, I've never been to a funeral like that. Didn't know what to expect, and it was so lovely that we could just all stand around his coffin. And the feedback I got and from the family on that funeral was really heartening to me, and they are beautiful, beautiful clients. And actually, not long ago, probably 5 or 6 months ago, Mum died, and she had a very similar funeral, and it was just lovely to connect with them again. And it just goes to show me that for people who are concerned about cost in funerals, and I get the concern about cost, it can be a big cost. These 2 funeral services, and Tom's funeral service was not a costly service, but I think it gave the people who attended it so much more in experience than some where a lot of money is spent on goods rather than services.
Diane, I think the true testament to a really great service is when you have clients who go out of their way without you even asking to go and put publicly a review of what you've done for them. And I think that's the case here, isn't it, with Tom's family, where they did that very publicly, and it's a beautiful review.
Yes, yeah, it was a beautiful review, and they're beautiful people. It just goes to show to me that, like you said, that business and service aren't really going hand in hand anymore. They really are, and I'm going to say it again. It's that mantra of meeting people where they're at. Had I have tried to do what people think funeral directors do, people think funeral directors are going to upsell them. And had I, and that's not in my nature anyway, but had I done that, they wouldn't have had the experience that they had at Tom's funeral. I wouldn't have earned their loyalty as I received when their mother died sometime later. And I wouldn't have earned their ongoing loyalty to my business and being advocates for my business as well, and being advocates for my service. I'm not a big funeral director. And people often come to me because of reviews or because of recommendations from people who have used and experienced our service before. So that's really very, very important to me.
Diane, if people are interested in hearing more about the idea of a simple send-off, what do they need to do?
Simple Send-Off can be seen in its entirety on our website, elitefunerals.com.au, under Services, Arrange a Funeral Online. And you can work through all the steps there of choosing the crematoria, the coffin and flowers, and seeing the price in the top right-hand corner.